The Our Foundation, Martin Tierney, and the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne. Proud supporters of Arts in Focus on PBS 39.
Welcome to Arts in Focus. I'm Emily Henry. Our first guest has been immersed in music since childhood and now shares her talent with the Fort Wayne Civic Theater as their resident music director. Eunice, thank you so much for having me here today. We are at the Arts United Center where you and I have done many a show together. But let's tell people a little bit about what you do. You are the music director here. Tell us what that entails.
Well, actually, it's music and education director. So not only do I train the chorus music and hire the orchestra and then conduct and play the shows, but I'm also in charge of our In the Wings Arts and Education program. So I have to set up the season for them, and then we provide specific performances for at-risk and economically disadvantaged children. And they get free tickets to dedicated performances for each show, and then I lead talkbacks and get all the tickets straight. And then, of course, just so I don't get bored, I have the job as administrative assistant for the fundraiser.
So you wear a lot of hats, a lot of very important hats. Let's talk about the musical hat. Mm-hmm. I don't think people realize how much you do when it comes to the musical aspect. Clearly, they don't realize what you do in terms of your other jobs.
Yeah.
Explain everything that goes into the musical direction portion.
Well, you know, weeks before you even start, you're already studying the score, trying to best figure out how to schedule everybody so nobody is sitting around waiting to be used. And believe you me, volunteers want to be appreciated and used correctly. And we realize that, and we don't want to waste their time. So you spend days figuring out a schedule that's like a jigsaw puzzle. And then once you start, it's a 6-week rehearsal process up here in this rehearsal hall. And I'm there every day for 6 weeks, you know, working with the actors, working with the director. If he's blocking, I need to be there to provide any kind of understanding of background music or interim music that he needs to be aware of so he doesn't block something during something that shouldn't be happening. And then, of course, once we get on stage, it's another ball game, and you're trying to put all the technical aspects and an orchestra with it, as well as the actors on stage, and adding the costumes to that. And so those make for late nights, and you know, I still say magic happens. The show comes together, and you're always ready for opening, but sometimes during that week, you're like, whoa.
You skipped an important part. You skipped the audition process, because I would imagine that as you are going through the score before auditions have even happened, you probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably hear in your head what each character sounds like. And then when it comes to the audition process, you are listening to candidates to hear if any of them sort of match that sound. Is that true?
It's true, but we always try to approach auditions with an open mind, that yes, this was the way it was cast originally, but what if? And we've had many situations where we didn't really see anyone who was, for want of a better term, an imitation of what was done on Broadway. So we try to expand our views on how to go a different direction with it. And so that's always tricky too, because yeah, you know what it should sound like and what you have in your mind, but as the auditions proceed, you start to change your mind and say, okay, well, we can make this work instead. Mm-hmm. You know?
And that's such a collaboration between you and the director and the choreographer.
Definitely.
so you all come to an agreement on who you're going to cast, and then you get to that rehearsal process. Explain to people what that rehearsal process is like, because you made it sound easy, and I know that it's not. You have to teach a cast of a lot of non-musicians generally, all of the music in that score.
Yeah.
Tell people what that's like.
It is, because when you have a lot of people who don't read music, who now have to learn 4-part, 6-part harmony, it's tricky. And so you try to sit them next to stronger singers so that they have someone they can lean on and listen to. You know, I always used to say we would get that sometimes singer that would sing whatever was sitting next to him, and if it was a wall, God bless them, you know.
Yes.
But yeah, dealing with a lot of non-musicians is tricky, and so you have to take the rehearsal schedule into that thought process, because something that might only take one night might now take 3 nights to learn. And so you're constantly having to readapt your rehearsal schedule to accommodate for the slower process of things and the remembering or lack of remembering. So you come back the next night and you realize, wow, we're gonna have to start over here.
Right.
So yeah, that can be tricky. But I have come to the conclusion that humor helps a lot. Try and keep things light, and you just smile and make the best you can.
You are good at that. And for people like me, that is much appreciated. Let's talk a little bit about your background. When did you start playing piano?
My mom started me playing piano in kindergarten. She was a piano teacher. And so I studied with her for a few years, and then her famous story she likes to tell about me is that one day she had, my sister was playing piano and kept making the same mistake over and over and over again, and I was sitting in the back bedroom, and I finally couldn't take it anymore, and I came out and played the right note that she was supposed to play. And Mom was sitting there and saw that, and she goes, okay, she's past me now, so it's time to send her on to someone else. So I proceeded to study with a teacher who was a Juilliard graduate and piano performance, and studied with her all the way through high school, and you know, set me up well for then deciding to go into college in keyboard area performance. So
from that young age, from that kindergarten age, was reading music, was piano just a language you understood?
It came easily for me, that's for sure. I did go through quite a phase in middle school, and to this day I ask my mom how I survived middle school, that practicing was not a joy for me, and I fought tooth and nail. And she's like, I don't remember that, but okay, well, whatever.
It's real, Mom, it happened.
But, you know, and I find it interesting, because for me, to sit down and practice is always a challenge, to force myself to sit and practice it. And yet I know that's what I have to do to accomplish what I have to accomplish. So, you know, even to this day, every show I play for, I know there comes the time where I just have to sit down and clean up all of these things that I've been kind of slugging through in rehearsal just to get through it. And so it's a language that was learned easily, but it's difficult to continue being the nitpicker on it, you know, and to keep up that mantra of what you have to do to be a good musician.
Mm-hmm. Did you always know that music was going to be your career?
No. There was a time in college where I came to a thought process that maybe music wasn't my calling, and seriously thought about things like library science. And then no sooner would I start to kind of go in that direction where I would be pulled to maybe start accompanying a lot of instrumentalists for their recitals. And then I thought, this is silly, this is what I'm supposed to do. And eventually just came right back to it, and that's where I stayed.
Do you feel like you have been changed ever by a musical, by maybe a musical itself, or by the process of it, or maybe by just the group of people? I know sometimes I've had experiences doing a show where you come out of it and you go, Wow. I maybe didn't realize it then, but that was kind of life-changing.
Actually, yes. I mean, there are some musicals that make more of an impact on you than others to begin with, and the bonding that goes on with the cast. And there is no doubt I have made some good friends through the many casts that I've worked with. But I was in one particular show where I felt that I was working with a guest director, and I felt I was just knocking my head against a wall, and felt we weren't really connecting, and wasn't seeing things moving forward the way I had hoped. And I sat back one day and said, it's out of my hands. And at that point, everybody working around me saw this change in me, and I suddenly became much calmer and much easier on the approach to everything I did, and just said, there are some things that are out of my control. I deal with what I can do, and everything else is in God's hands. And at that point forward, it changed my life.
Wow.
It did.
That's a big deal.
It is. And I've been a much calmer, happier person for it.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
Cool. Do I even dare ask if you have a favorite musical?
That is hard. You know, every so often we go through this and we look at each other and go, so what's your favorite musical? I would have to say The Secret Garden is in my top 10. The music in that is just so soaringly and achingly beautiful. I pull that CD out every so often to listen to it because it's just so beautiful. But on the other side of that coin, I went to see Jersey Boys twice and would go back and see it again the third and fourth time just because it is so much fun. And of course, the movie does it no justice whatsoever.
I agree.
So, and probably up there in the top, I would say West Side Story, you know, for a classic. And but it's just really hard because you see or do a show and you go, it just can't get any better than this. And then you go see another, oh, Ragtime is another one, you know. You just think it can't get better than that. And then you see another one and you go, wow, this is in my top 10 now. So that's hard, it really is.
I agree.
Yeah, I can't say I have an absolute favorite because they all vie at the top.
Eunice, you are truly one of the unsung heroes of this community, and no pun intended, by the way, of this community and certainly of the Fort Wayne Civic Theater. I always enjoy working with you. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
You're welcome.
For more information on the Civic Theater's upcoming performances, call 424-5220 or visit fwcivic.org.
The Our Foundation, Martin Tierney, and the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne. Proud supporters of Arts in Focus on PBS 39.